Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Quarantine Series, the Quarantine Film Series. I'm your host, Kabir Segal, coming to you live from the ATL. Nice to have you here. Thanks for watching, all of you around the world. I also want to say thank you to the folks downstairs watching. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Thanks for tuning in. So look, the Quarantine Series is all about shining the spotlight on creative individuals, the filmmakers, the artists of all types, musicians, authors. They're adding soul to our lives. We're all appreciating them even more. So please, if you can support the projects you learn about on this broadcast. And I also think it's important to think local, support the filmmakers in your community, whether the local film festival has been canceled or the local bookshop, artists and audiences. I think we need each other very much during these difficult times. So a couple things. First, if you have questions, I don't have to ask all of the questions. You let us know what's on your mind, no matter if you're watching live or on the rebroadcast. Just drop a comment in the comment field. Let us know what's on your mind, and we will be sure to opine to your questions and your remarks. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We got, of course, Atlanta in the house. We got Southern California in the house today, which is great. I always get excited with the international audiences. Special hat tip to everyone in Canada who likes to tune in. We're getting a big Canadian surge, eh? Also, the folks in Eastern Europe are tuning in. So thanks for watching. And if you want to know who will be on the broadcast, you can clearly subscribe to my social media, and you will learn as to who is on, when they're on, and start studying up as to what you want to ask them. So that is those are the public service announcements. Now for the best part of the show, we get to meet the wonderful artist. He truly is. I'm very proud to introduce him, actually. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He's a terrific Emmy award-winning filmmaker. He makes narrative and documentary films. He's a hyphenated individual. He embraces the hyphen. I think we should rename this the Hyphenated series. He's directed and produced over 50, it's a lot, noteworthy short documentaries. He's an entrepreneur. He founded Breakwater Studios, a venture-backed branded content studio. Please welcome to the show, Ben Proudfoot. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Kabir.
My pleasure. First, Ben, I want to ask you, how are you? How are you coping during this quarantine? How is it affecting some of your projects?
I'm pretty good. It's been a tough year for me personally. I lost my dad in May to a decade-long battle with cancer. And so basically, if things first started happening with him right at the same time that the virus was hitting and locking everything down at the beginning of March. So that first couple months was difficult for a totally different reason for me. But it was a silver lining for me because I don't think I would have been smart enough to lock myself in the house and spend every day with him for the last 2 months of his life. So that was a gift, but also extremely difficult. And then after that, we basically came sort of simultaneously to that. As a company, we were faced with the threat of a production lockdown. So we came up with a method to continue shooting at what at the time was the height of the virus in April, and have completed, at least 25 productions since safely. So it's been a busy year.
Well, first, my condolences to you and your family for this difficult time. Thoughts and prayers, of course. But I want to ask you also about those protocols. So is there a COVID protocol notebook that you have to keep up to date on as to what is the DGA approved or whatever guidebook on filming?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So as a documentary filmmaker, our crews are very small. They're generally non-union. So as freelance, basically our teams are freelance. So there were very few, if any, and certainly no other than just regular legal guidelines that the city or the state gave us. The industry did not issue guidelines immediately. So we needed to come up with our own. So the nature of the beast was so many people, experts were furloughed. So we luckily had our pick of a lot of advisors and writers to help us create this SIP protocol, self-isolated production protocol, we called it, which was this big 50-page document, step-by-step document. And essentially what it was is we use an Interrotron, which is a teleprompter system that sits in front of the camera so that our subjects can look directly into the lens, but they're looking at a reflection of my face. So as I interview them and they're looking into my eyes, the lens is right behind it in this teleprompter system, which this system was invented by Errol Morris, 30, 40 years ago. So with that, we basically took that, and rather than me being in the other room and a video feed coming, it was a video feed coming from my parents' basement in Nova Scotia, which allowed for a single crew member to set up the camera and the sound and everything. And so what we did was we just rented third-party locations, built the whole camera system, the sound, wired it into the internet, built a very large sort of hermetically sealed plastic barrier between the subject side and our crew member side. At the time, we were very concerned about contact, people touching things other people had touched. So we waited 72 hours between setting it up and the interview, things like that. And that's how we started conducting interviews. And then as we learned more and more about how this actually worked, we dialed it in to be as safe as possible.
Got it. Well, I appreciate you sharing that and that guidance for filmmakers out there as well to be creative and to adapt. I do want to ask you, Ben, about Breakwater Studios. Tell me about really why you started it. What is your aesthetic? Because you take on so many projects, you make so many projects. So what typifies a project from your production company?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a lot of projects, but we've been at it for 10 years. So, we've probably made, 200 films, but over the course of 10 years, it's not that many. But I started the company out of frustration. When I first came to Los Angeles, actually I was a magician as a teenager, and then got into filmmaking. I just was hugely disappointed with the way that Hollywood was set up. I didn't like it. I felt like there was no really creative campus where all the departments work together like I had imagined or I had seen in behind the scenes DVDs, which were essentially the promotional material that convinced me that I wanted a career in the movies. Excuse me. And so I went to these studio lots and I was just like, this is not what the DVD behind the scenes features promised me. I want to work with composers and cinematographers and actors and musicians and costume designers all in the same place. And I didn't see a place that was like that. And instead I saw these sort of very financial heavy, administrative heavy, movie themed WeWorks, which we call the studio lots. And so I just thought either I'm going to go do something else or I want to start my own company. And I started my own company. And that's the spirit with which we started Breakwater. And it was after that that we got into short documentaries and brand funded short documentaries, et cetera.
Got it. Well, I appreciate you sharing the origin story. Let's talk about some of these projects that are part of your incredible portfolio. Almost Famous. Tell us about this project, a little bit about the story for those who are unfamiliar.
Yeah, totally. So predominantly we make short documentaries. So these are documentaries that are, no longer than 20 minutes, generally around 10 minutes long. And that is our bread and butter. We don't anymore really make that many narrative films. We don't make that many long form films. And we're a business that's entirely focused on short documentaries. So Almost Famous is a short documentary series that we partnered with the New York Times to create and distribute. And it's about people who are, if history had gone a different way, they would have been household names. So the first film is about this, that's Kim Hill. And she was the vocalist in the Black Eyed Peas before they were very famous. That's, her on tour. And basically she had a conflict with what the band's management wanted of her. And she felt like it was against her morals and integrity. And so she split with will.i.am and the crew and went on a solo career. And it wasn't long after that Fergie joined and the Black Eyed Peas became who we know as the Black Eyed Peas. And so it's a journey into her psyche, her mind, her experience of how she, deals with that, grapples with that in really interesting and unexpected ways. And it makes you question, who is it that society remembers and why? And is it so bad to be the person who was almost? that might even be the better position. So that's one of a series of 4 films, and that's a continuing series, and we're going to be releasing more of those films next year.
What do the participants or the subjects, in this case of the film, think of their portrayal? Are they involved in the edit? How does that work with them?
They're not involved in the edit, but I know that they all were very pleased with the end result. My filmmaking style, I make films with empathy. I'm not a journalist. I'm not interrogating people. I'm really trying to lift them up and make them great storytellers so they can tell us their own story. That's how I see this type of filmmaking, where you have this direct address and people are sort of giving their testimony. It's less about me and more about them. So I see it more as giving them a stage and a platform to tell their own story. And my job is to distill what is sometimes a 9 or 10 hour interview into a 9 or 10 minute film.
Got it. And with this incredible repertoire that you've produced, do you have talk about the creative team? Is it a lot of the same people? Do you have your go-tos? I mean, I noticed on your website you have kind of your composer in residence and so forth. So, what is the creative team like, and how do you think about the just getting it done perspective?
Yeah, so the way our company works is we have a backbone, a spine of full-time staff that work with me on a day-to-day basis. And that's the consistent thing that's there through all of the different projects. And that is a financial spine, it's a producerial spine, it's a post-production spine. And that's about 15 people who are with Breakwater Studios in that full-time capacity. And then people who have very specifically key creative roles like cinematographer or composer or editors are probably the most important department we have in the documentary business. Those people are all freelance. They run their own businesses. But in order to sort of keep the creative process close, we build suites and we build stages for those people to run their businesses out of. We found that, if you're a creative individual, you don't really want to be forced as an employee to give your gift as a creative person. And if you're purely freelance working at home, then it's that fractured creative process that I want to avoid, where people are making movies over Dropbox. So we kind of lay out the carpet and create a sort of a bird feeder that is the company, and people are running their independent businesses as a composer, or as an editor, or as a colorist out of our campus here in Los Feliz.
God, it's very thoughtful how you organize and orchestrate that. Ben, I also want to ask you about your recent project, a Concerto is a Conversation. Tell us about this. I know it's in concert with the New York Times.
Yes, in concert with the New York Times. So yeah, we've become fast friends with the New York Times because we have spent the last 10 years figuring out how to make a good short documentary. And then we started thinking, well, how do we make a lot of people see these films? And so that's been a great partnership with us, with OpDocs and the opinion video team at the New York Times. This recent film, A Concerto is a Conversation, is a collaboration with Chris Bowers, who is a filmmaker and a composer and a pianist and a friend of mine. And the film follows his writing of a new concerto for its premiere at the Walt Disney Concert Hall. This is back in February of this year. And it follows that process while he has a conversation with his grandfather, and his grandfather explains the story of his young life and how he made it from this tiny Jim Crow town in Florida, hitchhiking his way across to Los Angeles, where he got a job as a presser and a dry cleaner and then owned that business, and kind of these key steps that he took to set Chris up for where he is today. And it's interesting because Chris was the composer for Green Book, and that's also sort of a journey through the South movie. So it's a fascinating story about family and race and music in America.
Yeah, Chris is a terrific composer, Emmy nominee as well. And I know when he was in New York, he moved out to LA a few years ago, as you know. I want to go down memory lane if we can. And we were some of your projects that we.
Let's go down memory lane.
Why not? Why not? Dinner with Fred. I know it was an early picture for you. Walk through this project and why you wanted to make it.
Yeah, so this is like a student era film. My first sort of big effort. It's about my grandfather's story. My grandfather, Fred Proudfoot. And he was a poultry geneticist. And when I first came to USC film school, I didn't get into the production program, never got in, try as I might. And so when my grandfather passed away when I was in college, he left me $5,000 Canadian, which is about $20 US. Anyway, that's not quite true. But I banded together with a few of my friends and we put together the budget for this short film. And it was about how my grandfather he volunteered for the Second World War and then was pulled out to head the poultry science, the Kentville experimental farm to grow chickens faster. So it's this 1940s period piece about his experience. And it was my attempt to show off my chops as a future Spielberg. And it was a fun and ambitious project. We had a period steam engine and matte paintings and a full orchestral score, and it's a charming little film. I haven't watched it in many years, but I think it was the lack of sort of career opportunities coming from it that told me that maybe I needed to start looking at something different. And when I started making short documentaries and they were so popular online, blogs at the time and Vimeo was really where I got my start. That was really when the circle was completed where I made something I was proud of, which Dinner with Fred had. But then when I met with an audience, which Dinner with Fred did not have, that's when things really started to get going.
Understood. Okay, got it. So it's been all uphill and all downhill since then, right? So it's been a little bit of both.
Clear since then what I needed to do. And then there was just a lot of hard work. And there still is a lot of hard work to figure out how do you do this? How do you make a business out of this? I mean, short documentaries is like, almost the worst place possible to try to make money today, right? Like, when's the last time you paid to see a short documentary?
Yeah.
So we've built a business model basically doing short documentary work, really high-end short documentary work for brands. And then with the profits we make from that, we make original work that, hopefully wins awards and a lot of people see. And that's this sort of virtuous cycle, this snowball that has allowed us to grow every year in the short documentary space.
Do you think that there'll be, your knowledge of the market, there'll be a follow-up to Quibi, or someone who tries to create an ecosystem for shorts and what they were trying to do?
Yeah, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm someone who tries that. I actually think Quibi, the thing about short form, it's an entirely different medium, right? So like taking the exact same style, stars, and genre and just chopping it up into pieces just misses the point of what the form is. The form is entirely different. You go to something that's short for a different reason. And I actually think that rather than thinking about it in terms of length, it's better to think about content as divided, which is a word I hate but have to use, between evening and morning. Because if you look at Netflix, it's really evening material, right? It's material that you want to watch and unwind, that you can fold laundry to, that you can leave the room and come back to, and it's fine. It's not gonna miss any, big detail. And the kind of work I do is morning stuff, where it's not, you don't have a glass of wine, you have a cup of coffee. And we want you to pay attention, really close attention for 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And so I'm not really competing with Netflix because I'm a morning person. And that's why we have such a good partnership with the Times, because there's really a lack of cinema in the morning. And so we're able to deliver these very potent 10 or 15 minute emotional cinematic films in a place where you wouldn't expect them.
Got it.
That's the key for whatever's to follow up Quibi.
I hear you. Are you a morning person?
Yes, I am. Very much.
Do you wake up at the same time every day?
No, I don't. I think generally if I didn't have an alarm, maybe I would, but I'm always waking up earlier than my body wants me to try to get something done. So I can't remember the last time I woke up without an alarm multiple alarms blaring in my ear.
Got it. Well, I want to toast an evening cup of coffee to you. So over here.
Water.
So, thanks so much for being on the show. You're really an inspiration, Ben. Let's get your website up on the screen. Learn more at breakwaterstudios.com. Reach out to him. Brands that are out there.
Please do.
This man can make your film. So thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Kabir.
All right. That's our show today. If you want to learn who'll be on the broadcast, subscribe to my social media and take care of yourself. Stop out there. Take care of the art. Bye, everyone.